following video footage was captured live at a rare Dr. Schulze public appearance. Dr. Schulze was told that without open heart surgery, he would be dead by age 20. Instead, he healed himself of his life-threatening heart deformity and of other incurable injuries. He then made it his life's work to help others have healing miracles too. Over 50,000 people worldwide have followed Dr. Schulze's natural healing programs. Many have healed themselves of so-called killer and incurable diseases. Because his patients dared to heal themselves of cancer, AIDS, diabetes, arthritis, heart disease, Alzheimer's, and other diseases that medicine declares incurable, his clinic was forced to close, and he now lives in hiding. Dr. Schulze is a very dangerous man to doctors and drug companies, but to you, he just might save your life.
Hey, how you doing? Hi. Yes. Wow. You know, I love you. Thank you for coming. We could spend hours on that part. I'm always clapping, and Sally and I just spent a weekend getting our audio tapes edited and put together for all of you. And the audio engineer kept saying, "Who's sitting next to you doing all that loud clapping?" And I said, "That's me." And he goes, "You clap for yourself?" And I said, "Yes." I said, "Yes, it's not for me, it's for all of us. This is not just me, it's much more than me." I have a box of books in here. I'm going to get myself set up. I have to have lots of things to throw when I get mad. Someone said they reminded them of Gallagher, the comedian, and I hope it wasn't my hair. Thank you for making this party happen. I can put out the energy and the desire for wanting this to happen, but it took all of you in here, every one of you, to come here and make this happen. And I really appreciate that. And I really love that. Because we're going to change the world. That's what this is all about. Yes, yes. You know, you saw it last night, there are people here from all over America, all over the world, Europe, Ireland, England, Germany, Australia, almost every one of the 50 states, and that thrills me to no end. Just so you understand this, what I do with all this money is we put it back into these events and publicizing this information. I just want you to know that I haven't spent one nickel of the Crusade money since we started doing this. And what we do with this money, well, you can see we got 3 video cameras here. They've built a room back here that looks like something off the spaceship Challenger, a control room. We have an audio engineer back there, so we're making audio and videotapes for you that then you can use yourself when you lose your natural healing understanding, and then you can also use to torture and brainwash all your relatives and friends and people that you need to spread this word to. I even take my personal money and put it into this event, and then I take money from American Botanical Pharmacy and put it into this event, because this isn't about me. You're going to see this next week. It's much more than a Dr. Schulze. It's all of you, it's all of us, it's our event, our crusade, because as I said, this is how we're going to change the world. Our job this week, one of the things that I want to do is reveal and uncover the simple truths about natural healing and the power we have within. Most of us knew these truths, but we got so beat up by the system, by doctors and the pharmaceutical industry and teachers and preachers and parents and all types of people that helped us lose this knowledge that we all knew inside that was in our hearts. And so this next 4 days, I'm going to work on just tearing it out of each of us so we can live that truth again. That's what this is all about. I am going to fill your tank with natural healing evangelism. That's what you came here for. So when you leave, you are more empowered. In fact, I'm going to flood your tank. I'm going to give you so much natural healing evangelism, you'll probably puke with it before you leave here. That's my goal. I am going to do everything in my power to teach you again the healing power that you're all blessed with, that's inside of all of you, that you can use to heal yourself and help others heal themselves. This power of nature, this power of God, this healing power within us that we got talked out of somewhere along the way. I spent almost 20 years in the clinic. That's where I learned how to help people get well. And that's what you're here to listen to. So I won't be spending a lot of time this week on theories and what I think might kind of happen and what I saw on a computer or what I saw in a library. You're going to hear my experience of what I saw in the clinic working with people, getting them well. Now I know that some of you, I've already met a couple, crawled in here, barely made it, because some godless doctor told you to go home because you were going to die. And I know I've met a few, and there'll be more I'm going to meet. I know there's people in here that have already been given the death sentence. And even if you're not one of those people, I know that you have a mother or a father or a sister or a brother or a daughter or a son or an aunt or an uncle or a close friend or a neighbor or a coworker that's been told the death sentence by another godless doctor that they're going to die. So if it isn't for you, that's what this is about. And if you're one of those people that was given the death sentence, I know that you almost gave up before you came in this room. And I'm going to tell you, I don't care what you've done before that didn't work. I don't care how many vitamins and minerals that you've used. I don't care how much vitamin A, vitamin B, vitamin C, vitamin D, E is in your cupboard that you've swallowed and it didn't help you. I don't care how much calcium and magnesium and zinc. I don't care if you've turned yourself into a rock. I don't care how many enzymes you've taken and amino acids and how many juicers cover your top of your shelves and if you have your Vitamix going. I don't care what you've used if it didn't help you, because I'm telling you there's something here over the next 4 days that's going to work. And I don't care if your medicine chest is filled. I know I've been to my patient's house. You open that medicine chest and it looks like a pharmacy in there, and there's so much you can't stuff it in anymore. So you got it on your sink and you got it on your toilet. Sometimes on the top of your toilet it's sitting there, prescription drugs, and they may not have helped you. And beyond that, it goes into the bedroom. And on the nightstand you have your prescription drugs and they haven't helped you. I don't care. I don't care if you've called Dr. Kevorkian on the telephone and said, please get over to my house and kill me before I rot, because the doctors have said I'm going to die. So I'm telling you that when you get home and Dr. Kevorkian is knocking on your door, you can say, Dr. Death, I don't need you, because I've been to the Crusade and I know how to heal myself, right? I know how to live. That's what this is about. I'm going to teach you this week. This is why you're here. Now, I know you all know it. I just say it a little louder. That's why I'm here, to say it louder, so for 4 days you can get pumped up with this. What are you going to get out of the crusade? The best way I can describe it is a physical, emotional, and spiritual bowel movement. See, I promised myself I wouldn't let 5 minutes go by before I said the word bowel movement. A purge, a cleansing, a lifting of the body, mind, and spirit. The body, yes, we are going to do some cleansing and healing here. Organic, organic, organic. Everything you see, touch is going to be organic. So what comes in, and we're going to talk about that later, and what goes out. You're going to be having even better bowel movements than you had on the way here. Maybe better than in your whole life. In fact, that's why you all got a bottle of intestinal formula #1 right in your bag, because I didn't want to take any chances. I wanted you to start right out with having your formula to make you have better bowel movements. That's another thing that this is all about. And when you come here, you can tend to get a little nervous because look at it. Over 200 people from around the world that are just as crazy as each one of you with natural healing evangelism. Isn't that great? Yes, look at this group. But sometimes that makes us a little bit nervous and we stop our bowel. So I didn't want anybody to get plugged up, because the first thing that happens when you get plugged up here is you get plugged up here, and we all want to take in as much of this as possible. So that's why the intestinal formula #1 is right in your bag, and you can start using it immediately. And hey, I can proudly say that this group, and wherever we go, we have plugged the toilets at every place we've held this crusade. Every place. Yes, yes. You know, it proves my theory. I do not believe that the modern toilet was designed for a person whose bowel works normally. I believe that whoever they tested that on was constipated. Because when I go, the first thing I'm thinking is that all going to flush down there? Now that's a good bowel movement, and a lot of times it doesn't, does it? And we plugged the toilet so bad up here, we plugged every toilet at once. So now we've hired a full-time person to be outside those bathrooms with a plunger to make sure that we can get it down. Now maybe we'll read in the headlines tomorrow, City of Santa Monica sewage system overloaded. Toilet paper wasn't designed either for good, healthy people. Believe me, you've all experienced that one. The mind, we're going to work with the mind too, with new ways of looking. I'm going to make getting well so simple to you that you'll be able to go out of here and really make better choices and understand the power that you have within you. A lot of you have known of Dr. Christopher, the late Dr. Christopher, great American herbalist, one of my greatest teachers. Love the man very much. A lot of people like to think of him as a kind of a gentle, humorous, white-haired, lovely old man. But let me be very clear that this man was a great rebel. Dr. Christopher was a very intense rebel. Dr. Christopher was thrown in jail 6 times for his beliefs in natural healing, put behind bars 6 times for telling people how to help themselves and their children and their families. I saw that man in prison behind bars for just speaking the truth of nature and God. I have a very dear old friend in this room somewhere named Bodie. And I was riding in a car with him, and he's a very gentle man also, very mellow, very gentle, very quiet. And I was riding with him, and he said, well, you know, this is a war. And I thought, well, that's a very strong statement from one of the most loving, mildest people I know. And then I started thinking about it, and I thought, he's right. I know I've been in jail many times. I know that the doors of my clinic were removed quickly with these big boom. So maybe it is a war. If you're not sure, you could talk to Anisha, this lovely English woman you'll meet back at American Botanical Pharmacy, because she was working in one of my offices when she got badges shoved in her face by government agencies. Yes, while we were celebrating our freedom this last 4th of July, the government came in again and shut American Botanical Pharmacy down again for our freedom. And so talk to her a little bit about how it feels to get government badges shoved in your face. Now, I've been asked by many friends in high places, Dr. Schulze, please don't say those things. Please don't talk about the government that way. Personally, I feel the hell with any government that treats its people like ours has treated us. And this is a bipartisan statement here. I'm not talking about any particular group. I'm not talking about Democrats or Republicans. I'm talking about getting in bed with big business like medicine and pharmaceuticals and taking away our personal rights to treat ourselves the way we want and to treat our children. Do you know that only a few months ago, a family whose son didn't want to be treated, the police went to the door, the paramedics went to the door, they took that child away from the family, they strapped it down with duct tape onto a stretcher and took it away from the parents because the parents and the child did not want to go through the medical therapy. Anybody see that on TV, Connie Chung? Yes, we got a few hands. Absolutely. This is a war. I've said that we need a revolution. And some people have said, well, Dr. Schulze, you're talking conspiracy. I absolutely am talking conspiracy, in case anybody wondered here. Now, I'm on the political soapbox here. Give me a few minutes to be on it. Yes, I am. You know, I'll give you a few conspiracy thoughts here. First of all, whenever I've got paranoid and thought, is this happening? Is this really happening? The truth has always been worse when it's uncovered. Did you ever notice that? You think, well, is the CIA really bad? No, they're not bad. They're just selling cocaine in South Central Los Angeles. Okay? The truth is always bad. I was blessed by one of my patients owned a large bank. And one of the board members on this bank was the head of the largest hospital group, private group in the United States. In other words, this man owned more hospitals around the United States than anybody else. Hundreds of hospitals. And he was speaking in front of a group of doctors, chiefs of staff of hospitals, and I got to sneak in my herbal tuxedo. I got into this black tie event, very quiet, sat in the back. Priest came in and blessed the event, and this man stood up on the podium and he said, because I always like to say a joke first, he said, running a hospital is just like running a whorehouse. You can't make money unless you keep all the beds full. That's the truth. That's what I heard. So when I say conspiracy, don't think for a minute that there isn't an organized conglomerate of businessmen and women out there trying to figure out how to cut you up, burn you up, and mutilate you and take all your money before you die. I've seen it. I've seen my patients. I've seen it happen in my family. It's happening out there. We had a bad earthquake here in town, real bad a couple years ago. Destroyed my clinic, leveled everything. There was a hospital in town, and it was on the news when this hospital got damaged by the earthquake so bad they had to get all the patients out. There were 200 patients in the hospital, and they got to send 187 of those patients home. Only 13 were transferred to other hospitals. What were they doing in there? Yeah. I gave a lecture a few years ago in England. And it was a quite intense lecture. 2 people fainted. I fainted while I was speaking. Must have really got on my soapbox there. After the lecture, the person who put it on said, there's someone here, a gentleman that would like to speak with you for a few minutes, and I think you should talk to him. And he introduced himself, and he said, I'm the Queen's physician. And I said, oh, terrific. And he said, could I have 2 minutes of your time in a side room? And I said, okay. And he said, you know, you're a very dangerous man, Dr. Schulze. He goes, do you realize you're speaking anarchy? You're speaking revolt? And I said, yeah, you must have heard my lecture. Really, it got sunk in. And he said, you should watch your back. That's what he told me. He said, you should watch your back. Now, you know, there have been many great doctors like me, like Dr. Shook, who ran the Los Angeles Institute of Drugless Therapy, one of Dr. Christopher's teachers. I think he was killed, disappeared, better than Jimmy Hoffa. Dr. Mendelsohn, a lot of people in my field tend to disappear when they start asking for an investigation of the government and of medicine and of the pharmaceutical companies and why so many people are hurt and crippled. And so I do watch my back, and I watch my front, and I watch my sides, and I have a lot of great people you've already met and I'm going to introduce later that work with us. And they watch for me, and all you are watching for me. But if someone gets down this aisle, I just want you to know that Mr. Glock here is going to watch me too. I will not be the first one to go down. I want you to know that. It isn't going to be me. I'll aim it back this way. Now that we got that out of the way, I feel a little lighter. I know some of you thought you were coming to hear Mahatma Gandhi, and I'm sorry, but I didn't ask for all these things to happen to me. I was just trying to help people get well. And this is what happens when you try to help people get well with the weeds that are growing in their backyard and not out of the drugstore. I didn't realize I wasn't playing ball. I didn't realize I had to be playing some game. I also got the legal team of Sam Colt and Mr. Smith and Mr. Wesson at my house. So I have some backup, and I've had a lot of great patients that have helped me out a lot with that, so I live in a place that no one can find. Some people have said to me, Dr. Schulze, you don't rock the boat. I get a lot of calls like this because I have a lot of people that I've helped get well in politics, but they call them, Dr. Schulze, don't rock the boat. And I've always thought, you ever notice that the only boat that doesn't go anywhere is the one that's not rocking? Okay? This is all about rocking the boat. It's all about kicking the boat, sinking the boat, blowing up the boat. That's what I'm here to do, is make waves, to wake us back up. If any of you are feeling any excitement and adrenaline, so am I. That's what this is about. I don't want you to go back. You bet it's a war. I don't want you to go home thinking the same thoughts you did coming in here, that I'm not doing my job. The enemy, yeah, the butchering, killing medical doctors and the pharmaceutical drug cartels, they're the enemy. Do you know that last year in the United States, more people were killed by doctors and drugs than all the people killed in the Revolutionary War, in the Civil War, in World War I, in World War II, in Korea, in Vietnam, and in the Desert Storm nightmare last year alone? Wow. Think about this for a minute. I'm here to present you with some thoughts that should rattle us. Here's another one. More people have been killed in the last 2 decades, 20 years, by medicine than by all wars of all countries since the beginning of time on this planet. Wow. Think about that. Do you know that not that long ago, when I was a little younger, we were all a little younger, during the war in Vietnam, horrible, horrible war, 5,600 men and women were killed a year in that horrible war. And it was so bad, it caused massive demonstrations in the streets. I know. I was there. See the scar? Right here. Chicago, 1968. Watch for me when they run the newsreels. I know. Massive demonstrations in the streets for 5,000 men and women. Political unrest, anarchy. This country had a war overseas and a war right here. We, because we weren't happy, all of us weren't happy, caused the removal of the Vice President and the President of the United States because of 5,000 people dead a year, and medicine is killing 1 million Americans a year in this country, and we're doing nothing about it. It's a crime, it's a war, and what's worse is we're all paying for it to happen through our tax dollars. So I won't be talking about politics the whole day, but when you see me get excited, I have to help you get mad, because some of us have been so numbed by medicine and pharmaceuticals and television and whatever. We forget these figures. 5,000 men and women, and it almost destroyed America. And we have 1 million a year dying. This is worse than any war that ever happened. And you're all here because you've seen it happen to your friends and relatives and maybe even to yourself. You want to see a Holocaust, you want to see a genocide, go to a hospital. Few people have said, Dr. Schulze, you make me feel uncomfortable. Well, hallelujah. Praise the Lord, because that's my job. That is my job, to make people feel a bit uncomfortable. I got here because I put my foot harder in my patient's rear end than anybody else. That's what it takes. We have to get uncomfortable before we can understand this. You want to feel uncomfortable? You ought to come inside here for about 2 seconds. That's intensity. I can feel it. And I'm going to tell you all the stories very soon about how I got here, what I'm doing here. But I would like to read you. You have a nice booklet here of a lot of my favorite handouts, but I'd like to read the welcome to you. And you can read along with me if you want. It's page 1. And you don't have to. You can sit back and breathe and close your eyes, whatever you want. But this is an important message for me, and so I want to read it again myself. Because remember, this is more than just Dr. Schulze speaking to you. You'll feel it. This isn't an event. This is a happening. I am not in charge here. And you'll see that. I am not in control. All the volunteers see that, and you will see that. This is an event. It's bigger than me. I could have retired already. Okay, I'm not doing this for the money. This is a blessing. And here's, yes, amen. And here is a little letter. I want to thank you for making my dream come true, because I know what a wonderful world this is, and I know that healing and health and laughter and love is natural for us. That's our natural state of being. I've known this since I was a kid. I've always felt this. And I knew that I was going to share this gift with you. I've felt it all my life. It's a gift that all of you came here with. You just need a little more encouragement to let it explode out of you like it's exploding out of me, to manifest it, to feel it, to breathe it, to live it, and release it and share it with everybody when you leave this crusade. From the beginning of our lives, we are bombarded with the lies of mankind. And boy, was I. They tried to get me every way they could. And we believe these lies to be true. As I know that many of you in here have at one time or another thought you might be crazy. Because while everybody was lining up for their medicine and pharmaceuticals, you were feeling like, this doesn't feel good in my heart. This doesn't feel right in my soul to have these organs removed. And you weren't going along. That's why you're here, because you couldn't take it. Our parents, I heard it from my parents. Our teachers, boy, my teachers almost got my mind out of my head. They almost got me going against myself. Our preachers, our leaders, they've all had us vaccinated with a poison worse than any bacteria or virus known. A disease that's lies buried deep within all of us in every cell of our body, mind, and spirit. And this disease is distrust, is disbelief. We no longer believe in God. We no longer believe in nature. We no longer believe in the healing power that's inside of all of us. And I'm going to show you some herb books here, and the herbalists are telling you not to believe in that. We'll read those later today. And this disease has corrupted us. It's infected us through our every being, every cell of our body. And our healing can only come when we are willing to trust again in God and nature, and trust again, believe again. and have the strength again to love again. This is what the healing is going to come from. These abilities, I feel, again, are the natural state, but we're also paralyzed, mesmerized, hypnotized, numb, and dumb. We're just walking around, okay, well, I woke up, I guess I should take Dayquil. Well, I go to bed, I should take this other one. And, oh, well, I can't, when I eat this food, my stomach burns, I better take more of these pills. We've all just become a machine. We've lost our common sense. And that's what this week is all about, is common sense. Now, I know that all of you have taken many steps to change. That's why you're here. And this week, I'm going to ask you to take one more. Few of the things I'm going to say this week might feel a little uncomfortable on Monday. They'll feel better on Tuesday, and by Wednesday, you'll feel it coming through your body. And if you don't, let it go. Get rid of it. I'm just going to give you my experience here. This is my dream, and so I'm just asking you all to take one more step this week, a little bit further out than you've dared before. That's what I would like. Many people say, where did you get all this passion and all this enthusiasm and all this excitement? As I was on my way here this morning, I could see this building from about a mile away, and I looked up at the top, and I said, there's 250 people up there waiting to play about natural healing, waiting to hear more about natural healing and the power. And someone said, doesn't that frighten you a little bit? And I thought, I can't wait to get there. I can't wait to get to this party. I was sitting at every red light going, I can't believe it's another red light. I wanted to get in this place. So people have said, why are you so passionate? Why are you so excited? What is this enthusiasm you have? So let me tell you where it came from and how I got it. When I was 11 years old, had a wonderful life, fairy tale life. Mom and dad, very poor, but they loved the heck out of me and my brother and had a wonderful life. But when I was 11 years old, I woke up in the middle of the night. I heard a horrible noise. I ran in. My mother was crying. She was on the telephone, and my dad was screaming. And I got in bed, because that's where I always went when I felt unsafe, was into my parents' bed. And I held my dad, and he was crying and gasping for breath. I remember he had sweat. His whole body was sweating. Then he threw up on me, and he was gasping. And my mother was crying, trying to get a doctor on the phone because he had been under doctor's care. And he was screaming, and then he lost bladder control, and then he lost bowel control. And I held him for 3 hours, and he looked at me in the eyes, and he said, the last thing he said was, he goes, I'm dead. And he slumped over. And I'll never forget that. That was my first experience with mortality. I couldn't believe it. This was my dad. And to watch him die in such a horrible fashion at 11. And you know, only a few years later, when I was 14, the same thing happened to my mom. She died of a massive heart attack. And at 16, I was in trouble. I started having pains in my chest. I didn't understand it. And I started having pains in my jaw. I thought I was having tooth problems. And then the pains were radiating down my left arm. And one day, the pains got really great, and then I saw my vision come in, and I fell over and passed out. And it got to where I was passing out almost once a day, and then once or twice a day. And it got to the point where I was falling over about 3 times a day, and I knew I was in big trouble. And I went to the doctors. And I went to the hospital and the cardiac specialist, and the doctor said to me, we better do some tests. So they did stress tests and cardiograms and x-rays and everything you could do at that time. And the doctor came back in that room. He had a very gray look on his face, very sad, very scary. I think he was trying to stimulate my immune system. And he said, you have a very grave condition. I thought, grave, does that mean that's where I'm headed? Love that terminology. He said, you're very seriously ill. He goes, you have deformed valves in your heart. And I said, what does that mean? And he said, well, what you're feeling is because your heart chambers are flooding at the wrong time. And he said, you need to have surgery. And I thought, wait a minute, there's got to be a lot of other things I could do. And he goes, if you don't have corrective surgery on these valves, by the time you're 19 or 20, you'll be dead, because there's no way this heart, the way it's flooding and it can't pump the blood, could pump the blood to an adult body. And being that you're 16, that's how you're surviving. So immediately I'm thinking, well, there must be other things. And I thought, what about my Aunt Hattie? See, I had an Aunt Hattie. She was really my great aunt when I was a kid. And all my grandparents were dead, but my Aunt Hattie survived because she was crazy, because she never drank tap water, ate her vegetables that she grew herself in the back. You know, she was nuts. And when we got sick, she'd grind up all sorts of weeds and stuff them down my brother and I's face, and we'd try to kick at her. She was an herbalist. We called her a witch. But, you know, we always got better. And so I said to the doctor, do you think my Aunt Hattie can help? That's what he did. He just laughed at me. He just laughed at me. And I said, well, you know, I said I had bronchial pneumonia once, and she had me better in 2 days. I said, you know, and I went on about Aunt Hattie, and I saw his eyes go off. And I said, well, there must be something. What about exercise? I know I don't exercise a lot, but I'm willing to exercise. I'm willing to exercise a lot. What about eating different? I'd seen health food stores starting to open up, and I heard about that. And they tested my cholesterol that day, and it was over 300, my cholesterol. I was trying to pump mud through my veins and arteries. I didn't know. And he said, listen, there is nothing that can help you except surgery. And they explained the surgery to me, and it was horrifying, cutting my ribs in half and taking a jack and jacking apart and sticking a knife in my heart. But he convinced me there was nothing else to do. So what are you going to do when your doctor says that? So I admitted myself to the hospital, and I sat in my room depressed, and they gave me drugs to take. And on my wing were all the other young people with bad hearts. So I got to meet them, and I met a real nice guy. His name was Bob. I'll never forget him. Wonderful man. And Bob and I became friends. You need a friend when someone's going to take a saw to you. And we became friends. And Bob was scheduled for his same surgery before me. The week before, I remember he had his surgery. The doctor came into my office with that horrified look on his face and told me that Bob died during the surgery. And I don't know what this felt was. I thought I was having a heart attack, but it was fear. And it started in my toes and came all the way up to my head. I lose bladder and bowel control. And I thought, now wait a minute. Dad died, Mom died, Bob died. Who's next? It doesn't take a genius to figure this out. So I said, okay, no problem. He shut the door, and I was like, I got my clothes on, and I was gone. And I went down the road, and I just started telling everybody about my problem. I figured there's got to be answers out there. I mean, when you start thinking about taking that saw out of the garage and cutting yourself in half and sticking knives in your heart, I thought I'd rather drink battery acid mixed with donkey crap. I mean, you couldn't come up with the torture that I wouldn't do. So I said to everybody, what can I do? I got this heart. And the first person I ran into said, well, I think if you eat less red meat, it's better for your heart. And I had kind of heard that, but I thought it was some kind of anti-German group. Because, you know, I had blood for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and dessert, and, a little sugar thrown in. But we never ate any of that green stuff on the plate. We'd scrape that off and give it to the dog, and he wouldn't eat it either. There was always blood in my plate. And I thought, to stop that, I mean, that makes you strong. That makes you healthy. So I had to learn about my food program, and we're going to talk about food a lot later. And then I had to learn about cleansing and detoxification. And I already knew how to change the oil on a 1950 Ford, but I had no idea how to change the oil on this thing. And that was new. And I had to learn about moving my body. I had to move my body to be healthy. And I had to learn about expressing myself. You know, love. I learned that you cannot have healthy organs in your body if you have negative tapes running here. And if you want to have a healthy heart, you better learn how to give love and receive love, because until you do, that heart cannot be healed. There's negative and positive emotions that will kill or cure every organ in your body. And I had to learn that. And it took me about 3.5 years on this program that I put together in a hodgepodge way, just doing anything and everything. Walked in the health food store and I said, what do I do? And they said, sunflower seeds. Okay, give me 100 pounds. I mean, I did it all. 3.5 years later, I went back to the doctor and I said, I think I'm well. And he didn't even remember me. Then he got my file and he goes, oh yeah. He goes, you left the hospital. And I said, yeah. I said, check me out. And so they did electrocardiograms and x-rays and stress tests and all different cardiograms. And he came back in that room and he had that same horrified look on his face. And he goes, I just don't believe this. I don't believe this. He obviously was not a believer. I don't believe this. And he was shaking his head. He said, if I didn't have the test results, if I didn't have the pictures of this deformed heart, I would have never believed it. But he said, your heart's perfect. Your heart's fine. There's no deformity in those valves. It's like someone put new valves in your heart. And I said, wow. I said, I knew that. And he said, how did you know that? And I said, well, listen to what I did. And I started telling him about some of my Aunt Hattie's routine. And then I started telling him about the carrot juice and some of the things. And I could see him writing, obviously, delusional, mildly schizophrenic. I could see him writing. He didn't care how I healed myself. That wasn't his business. That wasn't his job. His job was knives and baboon hearts and drugs and nitroglycerin. That was his job. This wasn't his job. He goes, you've had a miracle. And I said, yes, I know. But I said, I did a lot of work to make that miracle happen. God helps those who help themselves, right? I did a lot of work to make that miracle happen. He had a very, very shocked look on his face. So I left. Now I'm going to skip a little ahead in my timeline here so you understand about this passion and enthusiasm. Because a few years later in naturopathic school, I was making an ointment with a big 5-gallon pot of oil. And I walked out of the room and left it on high by accident. And when I came back, the oil was boiling and in flames. And I had taped all over the walls in this lab little herbal formulas that I was working on, about 1,000 of them, and they were all in flames too. And so it was like, emotionally, I just couldn't believe it. I thought, I got to get this pot out. And when I got close to it, it fell off and covered this hand. And my hand immediately burnt right up into a little ball. And it was on fire. I was watching it flame. And I quickly put it under water and wrapped a towel and doused it out and sat down. And I thought, uh-oh, I've done some pretty good damage here. And I opened it up and I couldn't get my hand open, and I looked and it was really badly burnt. And I was in shock. I could feel it. And I thought, natural healing, I'll be able to fix this. I was a believer, I thought. After a couple days, I realized I had done some tremendous damage. And then your friends come in, and they always help you by telling you that you could die of infection. You better go see a doctor now. See, we need the doctor now. And I thought, I better go see a doctor now. And I went to a friend of mine, a friend who was a medical doctor, and he said, this is a really bad burn. He said, you have to go to a burn specialist. I got a friend. You go see him right now. He deals mainly with hands and fingers. This is the top burn guy. Go see him. I knocked on his door, went in his office, and he said, this is pretty serious, did some tests. And he said, well, he goes, you're in for some work here. There's a lot of trouble. And I said, what's that? And he said, this is a 4th-degree burn. I had never heard of a 4th-degree burn. I said, what is that? And he said, you are burnt all the way to the bone. All levels of your skin are burnt and gone. And I said, well, it doesn't look that bad. And he said, look, took a tweezers, and right here where you see this pigmentation, he picked all the flesh off all the way down to the bone. All the little tendons and ligaments gone, little muscles, all flesh gone. I could see my bone. And I'll tell you, when you see your bone, it's a pretty lightning experience. I felt that fear come on. I felt like I was going to faint. My body started trembling. And he said, look here. And he put this clamp on my thumb, and he pulled it off like a cooked chicken. My whole casing, my nail, everything. Wow, this guy was trying to heal me? I said, my hand. And he said, that's 4th degree. And he said, you need massive skin grafts. And I said, well, can't. And I started telling the story about my heart and my Aunt Hattie. and my natural healing experience. And he said, no, 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 no. He goes, you have no skin. Not the first level, not the second level, not the third. You have no skin. It's gone. You have bone. He goes, you cannot grow skin cells from bone cells. Started making sense. He said, you can't grow skin from thin air. That started making sense. He scared me. He said, we're going to have to sew skin onto your hand. And after about a half hour, I thought, sew it on. Just give me a hand. I can't take this. Give me a hand. And he said, okay. He convinced me. And he said, will you take your pants off? I thought, well, that's kind of a weird request. I mean, I was in Hollywood, but I thought, take my pants off. So well, you do what your doctor says. I take my pants down, and he puts his hand on my butt, and he goes, well, this is where we're going to take the skin from. I thought they had like a sod farm out there or something where they grew this stuff. Or I thought when you died in an auto accident, they just kind of skinned you, and then they put it on somebody else. It's bad enough to have a burn-off hand, and now he was going to carve this beautiful butt of mine? I don't think so. And that's again when that natural healing bell went off, and I thought, here's another doctor telling me that my body and God and nature won't fix this, right? So I left, and I went home, and I worked, and I worked, and in 30 days I had skin over this hand. They said it was impossible. And I went back to that doctor, and I said, look. And he was, you could see it was like he had a physical shock from a battery pack under his chair. He went, and I said, look, 30 days, I got skin on this hand. And he said, I have never, ever seen that in my 30 years of practicing medicine. And I said, you've never seen it because all you do is sew people's asses onto their hand, right? I mean, how can you see the power of nature and God and your own healing ability if you don't give it a chance? This is about trusting and believing again, right? And I started to tell him how I did that. And I could see him writing insane, mildly schizophrenic, same thing. He didn't want to hear it. I had some good stories about this, about crying and pooping and all these things. He didn't want to hear it. About love, and when after a week I had to learn how to love this hand again, because I was holding it out there thinking, I'm fine, it's just this hand that's all messed up. And I had to learn how to love this hand again and give it some kisses to fix it. He didn't want to hear about the kisses either. Now let me skip a little bit further ahead in my timeline. Part of my exercise program, I thought, I want to ski. I saw a Warren Miller video. I wanted to hit the slope. So I took lessons, and I love lessons because I want to learn. Took a lot of ski lessons, got pretty good, and joined the NASCAR amateur races. And I was at Deer Valley, Utah, on one of the amateur races. I thought for sure I could win one of the medals. It wasn't going to be gold. But I thought, all I got to do is get to the bottom of this hill faster than anybody else. How hard could that be? And I'm going down, and I'm doing the bamboos and hitting the bamboos, and then got one turn left, and I'm looking at the numbers. I shouldn't have been looking there. I am on my downhill ski. I got my full weight forward. I'm feeling great. That's what I heard. Just this big. Next thing I woke up, I was in the hospital. And there was a doctor holding my leg, and it was like this, dangling. And I thought, uh-oh, had a lot of snow around me. Turned into a human snowball. That's the story I heard. He said, you have really destroyed your knee. He was trying to build my immune system again, I think. He said, it's bad. He goes, it's so bad, we don't even want to look at it. He goes, I'm going to splint you, and you get back to Los Angeles and go see the best orthopedic group in the world. They're right there in LA. They work on a lot of athletes. Go see them. I thought, okay. Came back to LA, went to see the guy. They took an x-ray, and he said, you've done it. He said, it doesn't get much worse. He said, you have torn out your medial collateral ligaments all on the inside of your knee. He goes, they're gone. He said, you've torn up all your interior cruciates right here in the middle of your knee. He goes, they're gone. It's spaghetti. He goes, you've torn your cartilage. You've torn your meniscus. He said, there's just a little skin and some outside ligaments that are just holding your leg on. He said, it's gone. He said, this is about as bad as it gets. He goes, you need to get surgery immediately. We're going to admit you right now. I thought, well, wait a minute. Isn't there something? Maybe my Aunt Hattie's got something for here. I don't know. I started telling him about my hand and my heart, and he said, I understand that, but this is different. He said, this is a physical damage to your knee. You need to have it surgically repaired. And I thought, well, wait a minute. What about all the love? I'm going to love this knee and herbs and juices and all the things I'm going to do. He goes, look, he goes, I'm not going to kid around with you. He goes, I deal with injuries like this all the time. He goes, it's bad. It's real bad. He goes, you know, if you don't get it fixed immediately, there won't be nothing left to fix. He said, in fact, these ligaments are so broken and so far apart and so destroyed, we're going to have to take the ligaments out of a dead body and sew them in your leg. And now I was in the room with Dr. Frankenstein. That's when that bell went off again. It was like the butt to the hand, you know, the saw here. Now they're going to take cadaver ligaments and sew them in me. And I thought, whoa, if I can build a heart, I can build a hand. I said in 30 days, I'm going to have a new knee. I was pretty cocky. Walked out of his office, and in 30 days, I didn't have anything. This thing didn't work at all. But in 60 days, I was limping. And in 90 days, I was walking without a limp. And here I am today. I never could tap dance. But here I am today with a new knee. I went back to his office to show him my new knee. And he said, this is a miracle. And I said, yes, it is. I said, but I did a lot of work to make this happen. And he said, well, I have never, ever seen anything like this happen before. Sounded just like his brother in crime, the guy who wanted to sew my hand together. I hope he was going to separate them afterwards. Would have looked a little weird walking around like this. And the first doctor that said I'd be dead by 20. If I listened to the doctors, I'd be dead. That would look pretty bad. I wouldn't have any skin on this hand, and I couldn't walk if I listened to the doctors. Thank God I had a natural healing filter in here, because I listened to my inner voice that said, don't do this. Don't do this. So what I'd like to do is explain to you about what I call the faulty mathematics of medicine. Now, the handout for that is near the beginning of your book, but you don't need it. You know, handouts, some people like to look at them, some people don't. But the handout is on page 8, called The Faulty Mathematics of Medicine. I'd like to go over that just for a few minutes here. One of the first things a doctor does when you go to a doctor is called a diagnosis. This diagnosis is done to discover what is wrong with you. There's always something wrong with you, because the book that we go by, or the model, it's called Gray's Anatomy. Gray's Anatomy is a book of the perfect anatomy of the human body. And there's books on the perfect physiology. And all of you in here, unfortunately, are imperfect. And so you are not going to look like that book. And whenever any of us is analyzed compared to that anatomy and physiology perfection, we fall short of it. Therefore, we need some treatment. And so this is a diagnosis first. Well, what's wrong with us? Why don't we look like this perfect model in Gray's Anatomy? Well, that model doesn't exist, isn't a living, breathing person. But that's what we're compared to. So we get a diagnosis. This is what's wrong with you. I have heart valves that are deformed. I have no skin. on my hand. I have a destroyed knee. Then they give you what is called a prognosis. Prognosis means telling the future. What's going to happen? Well, you have deformed heart valves. You're going to be dead by 20. You have no skin on your hand. You better sew your butt to it or you're never going to have anything but a skeleton there. You have a destroyed knee. We better take some dead body parts and sew them in or you're not going to walk. That's what a prognosis is. That's diagnosis and prognosis. But there's one thing the doctor forgets to tell you. And that's what's in the middle, right here. This missing factor. And of course, this is you. This is what's wrong with you. You have hairy cell leukemia. What's going to happen? Go home and clean out the garage so your children don't have to do it when they have the garage sale because you're going to be dead in 6 months. That's the prognosis. Diagnosis, prognosis. But they never took you into consideration. You know why? Because they already think they know you. They think you are the average American. The average American that they think you are eats a low-nutrition, high-fat food program. The average American has a diet high in nutritionally depleted food. The average American drinks 300 soft drinks a year. The average American eats 170 pounds of white refined sugar a year. The average American eats 400 candy bars a year. The average American eats 500 donuts a year. And since I don't eat any, somebody's eating 1,000. The average American will stuff 12 entire 3,000-pound cows into their mouth and down in their gut and try to poop them out in their lifetime. 12 entire cows. The average American will take 6 entire pigs, try to chew them up and swallow them and crap them out. The average American will take 3,000 chickens and other birds and put them in their mouth, and another 3,000 aliens from under the sea into their mouth and chew them up. The average American will drink 30,000 quarts of milk and pass this all through their digestive system. Whew! That's a job. Is that you? I don't think so. Average American has 2 to 4 bowel movements a week. According to my figures, that means they are 70,000 poops short in their life compared to me. Whew! Talk about full of it. The average American gets very little exercise, is overweight, has hypercholesterolemia or too much cholesterol, has hypertension, high blood pressure, cholesterol level of 200 or above. The average American takes over 30,000 aspirin and other drugs in their life, and over 20,000 over-the-counter drugs, and another 2,000 gallons of alcohol. Whew! Now that's a program. It's not our program, but it's a program. Now, if that is you, and the doctor says you have deformed heart valves, you'll be dead by 20, you know what's going to happen at 20? You're going to die. If that is you, and the doctor says you have no skin on your hand and you need to sew your butt to your hand or anything else to your hand, you better sew it. And if that is you, and the doctor says you have no ligaments in your knee, it's wrecked, it's gone, you'll never walk again, you better sew anything onto that knee if that's what's going to get you to walk again. If that's you. Because what these doctors say is absolutely correct. There's a book on it called The doctors call it their Bible. And every doctor has that book, and it's a book of diagnosis and prognosis. And it's published by Merck, Sharp, and Dohme, one of the largest drug companies in the world, part of the Dow Industrials. You see Merck traded. It's written by an international team of medical doctors, the best from all around the world. So these people are right if you are the average American. And this is what they're expecting. The average American. That person who takes those 3,000 cows and gets them all the way through and hopefully out. That's what they are expecting. So when they say you have leukemia, you'll be dead in a year, they're considering that you're the candy bar donut eater with a high cholesterol, high blood pressure, and all those other horrible things. But what about if you are not the average American? What about if you decide to take responsibility, I know that's a dirty word, responsibility for yourself and make changes in your life, positive changes in your life, that you decide not to eat necessarily everything that's in front of you, that you don't stop at McDonald's and maybe you stop at the health food store, and you decide to do some periodic cleansing and cleanse out your internal organs and get your exercise program going, and you decide to start changing some of the tapes you learned here. You know, my mother said you can't always get what you want, and when she died, the Rolling Stones said you can't always get what you want. I heard it all my life, right? Negative affirmations. We start changing that, and you're not the average American anymore. And if you decide not to be the average American, then these books are the biggest books of lies ever published. And do not go to a doctor. Don't go to a hospital, because they have no idea whatsoever of what's going to happen to you. You're going to be considered insane, schizophrenic, a miracle, because they have no idea. There are no books written about what happens when you have leukemia and you decide to get the juicer going, you get the wheatgrass juice out, you get the carrot juice out, you start running, stretching, cleansing, liver flushing, bowel cleansing, new attitude. There's no books on that. Medicine knows nothing about that. They study nothing about it. They've learned nothing about it. They know nothing about it. So, don't go to a doctor or a hospital if you want to be well. I guess that's the message here. Dr. Mendelsohn, and I'm a big fan of his. Dr. Mendelsohn was a pediatrician. Who knows Dr. Mendelsohn knows of him? Yeah, we have some of his books in the back. Great man. He was one of the nation's leading pediatricians. Practiced for 40 years with children, loved kids. He was head of the American Medical Association's licensing board for the state of Illinois. He was chief of staff of one of the largest hospitals in Chicago. He started the federal program Head Start, trying to get kids healthy. And after all these years of practice, he went, uh-oh, I think we're killing people. I don't think we're getting anybody well. And he wrote his first book called Confessions of a Medical Heretic. And he says right on the back, if you are sick, if you are ill, do not go to a doctor or a hospital. Statistically, your odds will be better if you do nothing. Nothing. Isn't that amazing? From one of the top guns of medicine, nothing. Now, what about if you do something? I know that's a radical thought, but what about if you do something? See, if you have a disease and you're the average American and you go to the doctor, I can tell you your future. They're probably going to kill or maim you. If you have a disease and you do nothing, you'll live longer. That's what I saw with my patients. My patients that just let the tumors and the cancer grow and rot them outlived the people I knew that took the chemotherapy and did all the treatment. And there is no statistical evidence today that proves that chemotherapy works for anything. Here's a government report I have right here from the General Accounting Office of the United States. The United States' Statistical Investigation Department on breast cancer and chemotherapy, and they say right here, how is this possible? That is what would explain our consistent finding that there is no observable improvement in breast cancer patient survival, even though the use of chemotherapy has increased rapidly in the last 10 years. It doesn't work. In fact, it makes you worse. So let's look at this again. You go to a doctor, your time is less. You do nothing, your time is more. But what about doing something? What about making some nice choices in here? for this new, healthier you. For this new, healthier you. You know what happens? You saw it. You heard it right here. And I know many of you have some great stories. Because I got the new heart valves, and unless I'm dead, and unless this is heaven, I'm still ticking here. And the doctor said I'd be dead at 20. And I'm not. I'm alive. And I got the skin on the hand, and I got the new knee. This is why I have this enthusiasm and passion and excitement about natural healing. I watched my parents die at the hands of doctors, and I watched myself live at my own hands with my belief in nature and God. And now I've seen it with thousands and tens of thousands of people all around the world. And this week, you're going to hear a lot of great stories of miracle healings about them, about what I've experienced, and I know that I got some good ones right here among you, and I can't wait to hear them too. It always amazes me when people will even go to a doctor. It really amazes me. What's the prognosis for AIDS? Death, okay. So why do you go to a doctor when you have AIDS? Why would you go to someone that's just going to tell you you're going to die? Think about that. Now suppose our toilet back there really breaks today. Probably will. We call a plumber up and we say, you know, we need a new toilet. Can you come and fix our toilet? And the plumber goes, sure, I'll be right there. But I must warn you that every toilet I've ever put in my 45 years of being a plumber, within a week it breaks again. Would you say, hey, yeah, come on right over? I don't get it. Why would we go to a doctor when we know they're going to tell us we're dead? Why don't we go to someone that tells us we can live? Do you understand what I'm saying? And plus, with all we know now, which I'm going to share with you later even more than you know, about how powerful this tool is right here between our ears at healing our body, we would never let someone give us a death sentence. I say this is the biggest form of malpractice by medical doctors today, is telling people when they think they're going to die. How dare they do that? Yeah. So after I healed my heart, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my life here. After I healed my heart, this is what I heard. Knock on my door. One of my friends said, I can't believe the story I heard about you and your heart. I said, it's true. Here I am. They said, do you think you could help my uncle? My uncle has heart disease. And I said, yeah, let's do it. I know the heart disease program, the Dr. Schulze heart disease program. I figured it out. We did the program. His uncle didn't have to have surgery. Got better. Next thing I heard another knock on the door. It was one of my relatives that had been diagnosed with cancer. Did the program. They went into remission. Oh, and it also worked for cuts and scrapes and all sorts of other things. What I learned is your body's incredible ability to heal itself. But I started getting a lot of knocks on the door. Pretty soon the knocks came from people I never met before. And I thought, well, you know, I would like to go to school and learn more about the body's ability to heal itself. And I had heard about a great doctor out here in California named Bernard Jensen, and some of you, I think, just came from hearing him. Wonderful. Yeah. What a wonderful, wonderful, beautiful man. And I went to Dr. Jensen's to study about natural healing. You know, first in New York, I followed a man around named Pavel Arola, who was an incredible natural healer from Europe, and boy, was he a butt kicker. That's when I really learned. Someone told me that sympathy comes between shit and syphilis in the dictionary. Now, I don't use a lot of four-letter words, but occasionally one slips out. I never saw sympathy get anybody well, but I saw a good kick in the butt do it just good. And I saw Pavo even wind himself up for him a few times, and he helped many people get well. And then I went out to Dr. Jensen's, but I had a problem. I had a 1960 Pontiac. It didn't run very well, barely got me across town. How was it going to get 3,000 miles to California? And I just prayed, and it happened. My radiator leaked so bad I had to stop every hour and let it cool down and put new water in, and my brother was with me, and it stopped leaking after about Oklahoma, and then I found out later he was putting his gum on the holes, and it must have fried them shut to some degree, because we get about 150 miles before the car sounded like it was going to blow up. Got all the way out to Dr. Jensen's. It cost $900 to do his entire training that summer. I had no money because I spent it all on gas to get there. I went into Oceanside, the town near where Dr. Jensen was. I went to a car lot and I said, what can I get for my car? And the guy says, the best I can give you is $900. Yes, thank you. I took my $900, I hitchhiked back to Dr. Jensen, I paid his wife the $900, and then it dawned on me while everybody else was going to their motel room. So I noticed when I went in his ranch that a dog was burrowing in the hedge at the front, and I thought, if the dog can do it, so can I. So for the months I stayed and worked with Dr. Jensen, and he still doesn't know it to this day, I burrowed myself into his hedge in the front and slept there. I showered with his hose, and boy was it cold, but that's hydrotherapy. And I borrowed some of his organic food from his backyard in his Hunza gardens, but I recycled it and gave back. And I learned more about the power of healing at Dr. Jensen's, seeing him at work with his beautiful, simple, loving understanding of natural healing and helping people get well. Boy, did I learn a lot. And I was willing to do anything to be there. And that's the point. I'm not just trying to tell you what a tough guy I am, but you gotta be tough if you want to be well. Natural healing can't be this fiddling around with a purple candle, okay, and maybe a little scented oil over here, because while you're fooling around with that, the doctors are sharpening those scalpels, they're boiling down the chemotherapy, and you go in and they're going to cut your arm off. Do you know what I mean? We got to be like that in natural healing. We can't expect to just be fiddling. Oh, but now it's real serious. You got to go to a doctor. Why to a doctor? Because they know how to treat serious disease and illness with intensity. And sometimes natural healing has to be done with some intensity. So I learned a lot from Dr. Jensen. Caused a lot of trouble. I don't agree with Dr. Jensen on a number of things. I don't agree with anybody but myself on everything. He used a few things I didn't like veal joint broth and cod liver oil, and I used to go, ah! Make noises like that in the front row. And after the first day of class, he said, yo, I want to talk to you tonight. And I went and I thought, oh, I'm going to get a special session with the doc. And I got a good one. He told me, he looked at my eyes, he told me about myself, and he said, I can give you the best prescription you can have for your healing. I said, what's that? And he said, learn 1,000 jokes. And he told me to lighten up. He said, I'm giving you the best I got after 50 years, and you're sitting in the front room making noises. So I had a lot of learning to do at Jensen's. And I learned it. And he says, I want you to take everything I've learned and take it out there and make it better. Improve on it. Modernize it. He just didn't expect to live so long. He's still out there doing it. Then I went to a health show and met a man named Dr. John Christopher, America's greatest herbalist this century. And I went up to Dr. Christopher and I met him, and I saw more people than I ever saw at a health show. Almost 15,000 people tried to get in a room, tried to attack this man. And I got to speak with him for just a minute, and I said something, and he said, come up to Utah. And when I went to Utah, I started studying at his school, and in my first course, he pulled me out and had me teach with him because he saw that I had an understanding of natural healing. And I worked with him for a number of years, teaching at his school. What a wonderful natural healer. And again, many people think that he was mild, but I'm going to tell you some stories about him later that you'll appreciate. I got to do everything at his clinic. I remember once a boy came crippled, had its spine severed at birth from an early surgery to save it because of a heart problem, and they slipped with a scalpel and cut its spine, never walked, 12 years old, and I took that boy in his wheelchair and I wheeled him into the stream that was coming from a melted glacier out back of the school, and 3 hours later in that classroom with herbs and that stream treatment, his legs started twitching. Okay, I got to do some things like that at Dr. Christopher's. If Dr. Christopher was alive today, he'd be kicking my butt to turn up the intensity. That's the kind of man he was. He'd be kicking a few other butts for lessening the intensity. He was a great man. His son, David, used to leave during a lot of my classes. He said he was afraid that we were going to get sued. We never got sued. We did get thrown out of every place we ever held the school. But after I spent time with Dr. Christopher, that's when I realized that we could work on people that were really, really, really sick. Really sick. Diseases that I didn't even understand. And that's when I started working with more incurables. And for the last decade of my clinic out in Malibu, I worked almost specifically with people with degenerative disease that were told they were going to die by a doctor. So I always say that, you know, while I was in the clinic, most of my colleagues were writing books. I have a lot of friends in the herbal world, well, I used to. They have decided not to practice because practicing is very tough legally, especially if you start working with people with cancer, because you know that you can't be cured of cancer, diabetes, arthritis. That's the official law. There's no cure for those diseases according to medicine. Yeah, but see, I was getting those people well. I was giving them the information they needed and kicking them, and sure enough, they were getting well. So I was causing trouble. And that's why I got shut down. My clinic was like a speakeasy. The windows were blacked out. Poor Anisha came over from England to practice. She thought she was going to be pouring some lavender oil in a cobalt blue bottle. And I had people walking in that were so dead. I mean, we used to have rags filled with pus in the bathroom and blood and bottles of worms so big they looked like snakes. And the stench was so bad we used to have to burn our sage and spray our essential oils constantly just to get the smell of death out of my clinic. That's how bad it got, and people were coming from all over. Still today, people come and bring jars. I know my workers sometimes say, oh, God, there's someone with a jar. I learned a lot of practical experience. I laugh at some of my colleagues. I tell them that they bottle herbal hypothesis in a bottle because you can't tell if it works. You got to work with people. What I learned and what I'm going to share with you here is what I learned in the clinic. You know, when Mr. Jones or Mrs. Smith come to you face to face and you give them something they're not getting better, you better fix it quick and get them better. And you don't learn that in the library, and you don't learn that on the computer database. You learn it working with people. And I know a lot of you have already done that, and I'm going to push you this week to do more of that. Thank you. This is a dangerous seat, because sometimes this stuff just all goes, but then it's the most exciting seat in the house, too. I had a feeling you were going to be in this seat, too. Okay, let's start talking about natural healing. Let's start talking about natural healing and what I learned of what natural healing is. You know, the word natural has probably been bastardized more than any other word in the English language. Pretty soon we're going to have natural cars and natural hammers. You know, you put the word natural on something and you're guaranteed a few million more dollars, right? So the word is meaningless. So what is natural healing? I thought we'd spend some time today figuring out what it is. In fact, before we figure out what it is, we should probably look at what it isn't. What natural healing is not. Alternative medicine. That means that it's an alternative to regular medicine. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's natural. What few friends I have left, I usually lose in this part of the lecture. On page 5 and 6 of your book, you're going to see Anisha's, an excerpt I took from her master thesis on homeopathy. You know, homeopathy, many parts of the world, people think is herbs. Come on in. Think is herbs. Many people think homeopathy is herbs. Well, homeopaths do use herbs, but they use a lot of other substances. The founder of homeopathy was a medical doctor, and to this day, I believe it is almost impossible, once someone has had any medical training, to think natural. There's a couple. I don't think this man was one of them. In fact, he was frustrated with medicine at the time in the 1800s in Europe, but instead of going to a more natural form of medicine, he just used exactly what medical doctors were using in that era, but in a small dose, in an invisible dose. And this is where homeopathy gets the name invisible dosage. It's very diluted to the point of almost invisibility. And some people say, well, then these obnoxious substances are okay because they're invisible. Well, I would rather have the invisible dosage of an avocado than one of a cancer tumor. Now, homeopathy does use herbs. There are many herbs in homeopathy, invisible herbs. And I am not debating whether homeopathy works. Medicine works sometimes. The question is what price are you paying besides the money, but what price are you paying in your body? Yes, your liver got better. Your kidneys rotted out. Whoops. That's what Mendelssohn called the whoops of medicine. Oh, yeah, your heart's better now. Sorry about the blood clot in your lung. That's the whoops theory of medicine. Your bowel's working. We got all that cancer. We did have to cut off your testicles and put a plastic pump in your penis. That's medicine. I heard them all. I heard them all in the clinic. So this man used medicine but diluted it. So he did use herbs, but his philosophy was energetics. But this man used to suffocate birds that were alive and drown them in his preparations, thinking that the energy of the bird would go into them. But in case you're still not disgusted, let me take a look at page 6 and recite to you a few things that are found in homeopathic preparations. And I'll start with insects: crushed live ants, honeybees, papal cross spiders, cockroaches, bed bugs, ladybugs, black Cuban spiders, a woodlouse, head lice, plant lice, centipede, the common flea, orange spiders, Spanish spiders, gray spiders, Australian black spiders, for those of you from Australia. We didn't want to leave you out. The fly, the potato bug, locust, live wasps, caterpillars, scabies, mites, and kissing bugs. How about snakes, reptiles, and fish like crawfish, red starfish, roasted sponge, yellow viper, toad poison, copperhead snake, red coral, rattlesnakes, coral snake, digestive fluid of the lobster. Who thought of that one? Fish, fossils, jellyfish, purple fish, cobra snake, inky juice of cuttlefish, leeches, German vipers, Gila monster, king crab blood, moccasin snake, strong fish, and adder snakes. And in case you're wondering about animal, human parts, and diseased organs, and unknown material, adrenal gland secretion, whale morbid secretion, a maceration of a tubercular lung, botulism poison, saliva of a rabid dog, animal charcoal, a cancer nosode, rudimentary thumbnail of a horse, the beaver, cholesterol from the gallbladder lining. We all need more cholesterol, right? We have diphtheria virus, fecal matter taken from the amniotic fluid of an unborn horse. Pancreatic fluid, dog's milk, lecithin from animal brains. Lunch is coming. Horse grease gland, septic pus from cow flesh, decomposed in the sun for 2 weeks. Muscle tissue acids, protein from decomposed human fecal matter. Syphilis virus, typhoid gland of sheep, a nosode from a tubercular abscess, smallpox pus, cat's milk, gallstones, anthrax bacteria, and testicle extract, chemicals, metals, toxic substances, arsenic, cyanide, mercury, lead, ammonia, amyl nitrate, anthracite coal dissolved in boiling potash, coal tar, lime, plaster of Paris, carbolic acid, chloroform, lodestone magnets, formaldehyde, soot, graphite, lead, potash, saltpeter, nickel, petroleum, radium, tin, sulfuric acid, thallium, TNT, uranium, and alcohol exposed to X-rays. Whew. Now, those are only some of them. The point I'm trying to make is not debating whether homeopathy works. It's, do you want these substances in your body? Okay, do you even want the energetics, the energy of these substances in your body? I think we have other tools we can use. Yes, I've had patients come in that were absolutely healed by homeopathy, but I've had patients that were absolutely healed by medicine. The question is what price do you pay by taking an energetic dose of pus from decomposed, diseased animals and humans? What price do you pay? Maybe we pay a price. Maybe we pay a price. I don't want to pay that price. I am not prepared to pay that price. On page 7, you'll see another handout about Chinese medicine. Now I'm going to write off a whole continent. First of all, it always amazes me, living here in Southern California, why some people try to make me think that God put all the good herbs on the other side of the planet. Sometimes I think it kind of spins like this, because all the good herbs are on one side. Dr. Christopher, a very wonderful man, used to say we need to learn to live under our own fig tree. Under our own fig tree. Use what's in our backyard. Use what's right around us. All the peoples of the planet use traditional medicine. And traditional medicine mainly included animals. We were stronger. We could outwit them sometimes, and we killed them and used them. Most traditional peoples did not use that many herbs. They used them, but they used a lot of animals too. We tend to use less animals today. But there are many, now there's great debates on that, because a lot of people now are discovering that primitive people used a lot of plants. In fact, much more. But regardless, any old materia medica you see of primitive people, they used a lot of animals. The Chinese system of healing is estimated at being thousands of years old. They use a lot of animal parts. The Chinese are responsible for the close extinction of the tiger in the wild. The Chinese believe that the tiger will make you stronger. And they use the tiger whiskers and the tiger skin and the tiger bones. And they use the tiger penises, because they think that a tiger penis eaten is going to help a man have a better erection. So they eat a lot of tiger penises. And many people say, well, they don't do that anymore. But a friend of mine named Samuel Labuddy went up to Chinatown in San Francisco, and over half of the herb shops found tiger parts and tiger carcasses. And the tigers are protected now, so the Chinese, and we'll say Asians in general, went after the rhinoceros for the rhinoceros horn, because we still needed to find something, they thought, to make that penis hard. So they went after the rhinoceros horn, and they killed rhinoceros all over Africa. In fact, the Kenyan and Tanzanian governments right now are doing their best to keep all their rhinoceros alive, and they're failing at it. And they've gone around and dehorned all the rhinos and cut their horns off so they wouldn't be killed, and they're still being shot by poachers from helicopter gunships, and the stump is dug out. I mean, this is crazy. And so we're almost losing our rhinoceros. It's a very old system of medicine. Let me read you. There's a big Chinese herb shop right here in town. Let me read you a few excerpts from their Chinese herbal tonics sold at their Chinese herbal emporium. We have supertonic herbs such as deer antler. That's kind of odd. I never thought a deer antler was an herb. Pearls are very special herbal substances. See what I'm saying? There's a lot of people that have a lot of ideas on what herbs may or may not be. If you're wondering why the cover is black, because, you know, I get sued enough. So we black out a few covers. Here's an interesting statement out of the same book. This formula contains 41 herbs, 3 of which are male animal sexual organs. That's a different concept than what I call herbs. In fact, in this book, I found gecko, that little lizard that crawls around California. I found cordyceps, fungus off the head of caterpillars, deer antler, dragon bone, which is fossilized elephant or mastodon bone, placenta. Wonder where that comes from. They didn't say what kind. Tortoise shell, seahorses, fish. This is not herbs. But I had many patients that had decided not to eat animals, but they were using this type of preparation. In fact, if you fly into LAX, at one of the terminals, they have a booth put out by one of our government fish and game saying, don't buy Chinese medicine because it contains a lot of this material, and I see it all over. So I'm not trying to condemn a group of people. I'm just saying this is 1997. Whatever year it is, it doesn't matter. We don't have to destroy animals and eat them to be well anymore. We don't have to do that. We can stop that practice. Some people say, well, Dr. Schulze, suppose there was like a big nuclear war and all the herbs were burnt up. And what would you do? And I think, I'd kill them and eat them. Are we talking survival here? No. We don't have to do that. Oh, I mean, come on. I saw a few serious looks. Uh-oh, cannibal. I didn't know he was a cannibal. The point is, there hasn't been a nuclear war. The point is, we have plenty of herbs, and until that time comes, if it ever does, we don't need to partake in that. It's time to dig a hole and bury these ancient systems of medicine that evolve around the killing, mutilation, and torturing of animals. That's the point. We have some wonderful things up in the other room from PETA and other groups showing us that even medicinals that we thought were not animals are animals, and I'm going to talk a lot about those. Then we have naturopathic medicine. Sounds kind of like natural healing, the natural treatment of disease. A bit negative. I'd rather say build your health, but the natural treatment of disease is naturopathy natural? Well, it depends. It depends what people are willing to use. The point I'm making here is you have to start using this. You can't just say, oh, this is homeopathic medicine, it's herbal, it must be good for me. Oh, this is Chinese medicine, it's an ancient system, or it's Ayurvedic, it's an ancient system from India, must be good for me. Oh, this is naturopathic, it must be good for me. You're going to have to start being responsible for what's in the bottle, reading the labels, and if it isn't on there, call the manufacturer. And we're going to talk a lot about that. If you're responsible for your health, you better get more information. Here's some formulas designed by a man that's a head of a botany department at one of the top naturopathic schools. I thought these are going to be great. Head of the botany and herbal department. This man must know a lot about herbs. He looks impressive. I want more. These are going to be some great formulas. Let's look at one here. Oh, here's one here for the immune system. Can't wait. Vitamin A from fish liver oil. Vitamin D from fish liver oil. Calcium from milk. Raw spleen tissue. Raw thymus tissue. Raw lung tissue. I must be on the wrong page. This must be to depress your immune system. Where's the echinacea? Is there echinacea in here, our immune herb? No. Any garlic? How about garlic to build the immune system? No. All it is fish, beef, dairy. This is an immune nightmare. I thought it was a joke. Let's look, here's another one here. This one should be good. Liver detoxifier. Oh, I like detoxifying the liver. Tomorrow morning, we're going to have some liver flushes in here. Liver detoxifier. It's got in it liver? Liver. It's got liver. I don't know, it doesn't say if that liver was detoxified or not. But it has some kind of liver in here. It has ox bile and fish liver oil. This guy's parents must be a butcher or something. Is this designed to clean our liver? but it looked good. And this man's an herbalist and one of the top herbalists. So the point is that not everything that gets into your face that says alternative or natural or has a rainbow or a whale on it, or it's homeopathic or ancient Chinese or ancient Indian or ancient American or ancient anything may not be what you want to put in your mouth. And I wanted to make that point clear. Sure, I alienate some people. Yes, I blow up some belief systems. But the healing of us and the healing of this planet is going to take place through our enlightenment and our illumination and our education. Does that make sense? Yes. And I'm not here to win any popularity contests, period. Okay, if I was, I'd be saying, oh, I think a hamburger once in a while is okay. Do you know what I'm saying? I'm not here to be popular. I told all my crusaders, and I'll tell out of you, I will stop when nobody walks in this door to hear this message. That doesn't seem to be happening, does it? Okay? In fact, I am a wonderful believer in people in this country and all over the world. See, pharmaceutical companies and medical companies, they believe you're a bunch of stupid, dumb morons, and if you're not, they'll give you Prozac and turn you into one. Okay? That's who they believe you are. Oh, you're not going to stop eating the donuts and shoving 12 cows in your mouth. You'd rather have a coronary bypass surgery and pay $150,000 for it. That's who they think you are. Well, you know what? I know that's not true. I know the people in this country and around this world, and I travel all through it. And I find a lot of great people, a lot of loving people with a lot of common sense who are tired of getting ripped off by medicine and pharmaceuticals, who are tired of things not working, making them worse, and taking all their money. And they're sick and tired of it, and they've had it. That's who I find, and I know that America and the world is ready for this message. So when people say to me, oh, don't rock the boat, and you're talking anarchy, America, the world is ready for this message. I met a man from Africa just yesterday, and he was out in the street, and I didn't know if we had anybody coming here from Africa, so I kicked his butt in the door. I want someone from everywhere. We're taking this message around the world. I already have, and it's getting bigger and bigger. This is how we're going to save ourselves and the planet. Now, there's a few more things here. Here's a magazine on herbs. It's one of the top herb magazines out there. I'm excited. Let's see, the first herb article. Ricin, the deadly toxin from castor bean. Ricin, the deadly toxin from castor bean. It's listed in the FBI as the third most poisonous substance known. This natural toxin is considered 6,000 times more toxic than cyanide, 12,000 times more toxic than rattlesnake venom. Boy, I better make sure I don't mistakenly get some of that in me. Oh, well, let's go on to the next article here. Oh, boy, here's a person who had that toxin and had to have a liver transplant. Thank God for doctors. Oh, and here's someone who ate poisoned mushrooms, and they chopped them up in their spaghetti sauce, almost killed him. Okay, let's get on to herbs. Caution with homemade oils. If you make your own garlic oil at home, you could get botulism. Holy moly. God, Dr. Christopher taught me how to do that. I've been making it for years. I better stop. Well, let's get to an herb article here. Let's try to find an herb article here. The agony, herbal high, the problems with herbal ecstasy. Ooh, and here's something else that'll kill you if you don't make it right. Here's a whole section on black tea. And one more story about the way you could poison yourself with herbs. And this is an herbal magazine. Kind kind of frightening. Oh, here's a book here. The videos, try not to do any too close-ups on these. Or we'll have to edit them out because another lawsuit. Now here's a book about herbs. It's published by the Pharmaceutical Products Press. This is one of the biggest sellers of herbs out, but let's look at, oh good, aloe. Hey, it's got aloe to start, A-Z aloe. Aloe. The aloe, using aloe in treating most conditions has not been verified. In fact, 2 Food and Drug Administration advisory panels found insignificant evidence to prove that aloe was useful for anything. God, I've been killing myself to grow this aloe vera cactus, and now I can just let it die. What about angelica? Ooh, it's potentially toxic. The use of angelica as a self-selected drug is not recommended. Whew. Almost use that. Barberry. Here's barberry. In spite of various chemicals in barberry that it's contained, they're not useful drugs. It appears that there's no reason to recommend barberry for its therapeutic property. Any serious discussion of this drug belongs more properly in history books, not in medical books. How bayberry? Bayberry's next. Bayberry. However, even bayberry, if it were a useful drug of any particular condition, a hypothesis that remains unproven, at least in large doses, it's still in doubt because of its potential carcinogenic nature. Bayberry? Carcinogenic? I can't say right now. Black cohosh. Dr. Shook talked about it. Dr. Christopher's favorite. Black cohosh does appear to exert some physiological effect, but nothing has ever been clearly verified in human beings. And safety of it is certainly a concern because information on its toxicity is lacking. In other words, we don't know anything about it being toxic, but the information is lacking, so it could be. Do not put it in your mouth. But I'm getting to, maybe there's some good herbs in here. Here we got boneset. I love boneset. Nevertheless, there is presently a revival in the interest of using boneset. Yeah, among American herbalists, medicine who employ it to relieve fevers, although safer and more effective treatment, such as common aspirin, exists. You know, I've been fooling around with these herbs to get that boneset, and I could have just taken an aspirin. Burdock. Oh, I love burdock. The Japanese eat it like carrots. Commercial samples of burdock could be prone to adulteration with deadly nightshade. Ah! I didn't know that. Capsicum, cayenne, my favorite. Caution, use of this irritating product is advisable. Now, they got me mad. Same author. This one might be better. Ooh, he's got a thing in here. He's talking about me. It says, Dr. Schulze, read this. Para-herbalism, belief in the superiority of things natural and organic, which has gained considerable favor in the United States in recent decades, may be viewed as an outgrowth of the counterculture movement of the 1960s. 10 ways to distinguish a para-herbalist from a rational herbalist. Let's see, I don't want to be a para-herbalist. A para-herbalist believes there is a conspiracy by the medical establishment discouraging the use of herbs. I haven't said anything like that. A para-herbalist thinks whole herbs are more effective than their isolated active constituents. A para-herbalist thinks natural and organic herbs are superior to synthetic drugs. Para-herbalists think that the moon is significant, and the way the planet rotates, and making tinctures by the moons. And there is no scientific evidence supporting this assertion. Para-herbalists think tests in animals are not applicable to human beings because there are differences between us and animals. A para-herbalist thinks that anecdotal evidence is significant, highly significant, if anybody got well using an herb without a test. This is non-reliable evidence. That just blew 20 years in my clinic down the drain, didn't it? Here's number 10. A para-herbalist thinks that herbs were created by God to cure disease. This thesis is not testable and should not be used. Oh! I don't know where these come from. What's the point I'm making here? There's a lot of herb books out there. A lot of herbal magazines. I'm just wondering how much the pharmaceutical industry paid these people to write this stuff. Okay, it's our first break time. We made it. Everybody's still here. Now the big question is, will anybody come back afterwards? I'm going to come down here because I want to meet a few of you, but we do have our break now. Are we ready, Sally? And what do we have for our break? Oh, some lovely organic fruit. I really appreciate that all of you came here from where you came from, and we're going to have some wonderful weather, and we got some of our best California organics here for you. So please go out, try to get some air, walk around. Let's start back up in 10 minutes. Okay, we're not going to have a long break because then we're going to break for lunch. So see you back here in 10 minutes. Yes, ma'am.